Amazing. Great. Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for sticking around to the end of the day to listen to my talk. First of all, I'd really like to thank Liron, Tammy, Shani, and Alex for inviting me to teach and speak at this year's conference. And thanks to you for sticking around. It's a pleasure to be in my favorite city speaking about one of my favorite things, which is hand lettering. But just a heads up, my last presentation was actually me with brush and ink with a camera above me projecting it. So thank you for your patience with my PowerPoint skills here. But let's just get right to this. So in recent years, there's been this renewed interest in authenticity. My instinct is that this comes as a result of the skepticism, distrust, or just sheer exhaustion of technology, especially in the world of visual communication. We see this in photography, stock photography, graphic design, and especially social media. In the era of fake news, we find ourselves asking, but is it real? Analog revivalism has come about because of people's desire to get back to their roots, to see and touch things made by hand by humans. There's a renewed interest in that which is irregular, abnormal, imperfect, which is particularly fitting for this year's conference theme, which is the atypique. There's an inherent tension, though, when we bring the analog into the digital world. It can appear anywhere on the spectrum of terrible to far too perfect. So today's presentation will try to address these challenges and show the potential of hand lettering on the screen. First of all, I'd just like to go over some just basic nomenclature just so we're all on the same page. So in the world of typography, everybody knows we've got type and lettering, type encompassing fonts and typefaces, which are systems built to be used on a keyboard, whereas lettering is, for all intents and purposes, one-off things that are done custom for a specific usage. And within the world of lettering, there's infinite different possibilities. The one I love most right now is this hashtag showing up on Instagram called Crayolegraphy, which I guess is calligraphy done with Crayola pens. I don't really know. But one quick little caveat is that if you were to draw a Venn diagram of where type and lettering intersect, that would sort of come when you look at script fonts, like the beautiful font we saw today, Marcel, by Carolyn Porter. So this is just sort of the world we're looking at. If you do a simple Google search of lettering, or if you look on Pinterest, there's just zillions of different kinds of lettering right now. But for the purposes of this discussion, I'd like to just focus on traditional brush lettering done by hand. So I'm going to give you like a 60-second synopsis of lettering history. Hand lettering, as we know it, really had its heyday in the mid-century. If we think of like the 40s and 50s, when the commercial arts really thrived, there were lettering artists in design agencies creating custom mastheads and letterheads on the fly, and these would be put into production. If you're looking for a great resource, some of my favorites are these anthologies put together by British type designer Ryan Hughes. He has ones for the 20s and 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s, and they're incredible specimens if you're looking for inspiration. Another great untapped resource is antique malls and used bookstores. I've come across several incredible, they're basically commercial arts correspondence courses where you would learn how to do lettering like the pros. So you get a sort of crash course in lettering, you learn how to do layout, and then you would actually, with these courses, you would send in your lettering and they would mark it and send it back to you. Incredible. This one's from, I think, 1962. And then, as everybody knows, if you know design history, especially in North America, and if you've watched graphic memes, you'll know that things really took a change when digital technologies were introduced in the 60s. It started in publishing and then worked its way down. And it was really detrimental to these lettering artists because their jobs had been replaced for something which was much faster and more economical. But as things advanced and things were democratized a bit more, and we moved into desktop publishing, and then now into the 2000s, I told you this was going to be a fast-forward version. I can sort of report that everything old is new again, and we're seeing things being revived. So the present. I can tell you, speaking for myself, I'm visiting from Toronto, and I'm one of the co-founders of Ligatures, which is Toronto's typography and meetup organization. We're celebrating our 4th anniversary next month. We've held one event every month for the last 4 years, ranging from workshops, meetups, type walks, type talks, film screenings, lectures. The community has really embraced us, and we're super happy with how things are going. So I guess just a plug, if you're in Toronto, be sure to check us out. And then if you just look anywhere, lettering is really thriving around the world. These are just some of my favorite lettering artists that I follow, notably Martina Floor, Ben Johnston, Seb Lester, Ryan Hamrick, Ben Johnston, who's actually from Toronto, Neil Secretario, and Ken Barber. If any of you are here, I'd love to shake your hand, just saying. Anyway, so now we're moving into the future, which I guess is great. Oh, is that right? Oh, I guess we're done. So that's it, sorry, yeah. I'm kidding. Lettering is not dead, but some people are saying it is. Last year, an American author named Anne Schrubeck released a book called The History and Uncertain Future of Handwriting. I had the privilege of debating her on Canadian radio, CBC Radio Q. She was debating against handwriting, and I was debating for handwriting. Her argument, basically, is that there's an inevitability that handwriting will end, just like stone carving ended. And she feels that we're only holding on to it because there's a sentimentality. Okay, I see what you're saying. One of my favorite quotes from the book is this one, where she basically calls me a hipster. Not personally. She did not call me a hipster on the radio. She was really quite lovely, but I will say her tone was slightly pessimistic for handwriting. Whereas at TypeCon last month in Boston, Megan D spoke quite eloquently in her talk, The Slow Death of Handwriting. She spoke about how we're living in this transitional time, and there's actually great opportunities for us to embrace the best parts of technology. And if we look to the global leaders, i.e. Apple, we've seen these little hints that things are being held on. When Apple introduced the iOS, I guess, two ago, they had this fun handwriting feature where you could write with your finger and send that as a text message. And although it seems a bit like it doesn't mean anything, I think it actually means a lot. I think it shows that they acknowledge the trend and they want to integrate it in a bigger way. And if you subscribe to the feeds, or if you are on Twitter, every month or two there'll be another really great article in the New York Times purporting the benefits of handwriting, especially cognitive benefits. So I'd say, in my opinion, I think we're on the right track. There's challenges, but we're on the right track. So, some questions that I asked myself for this talk when it comes to digital lettering. Is it possible to digitize hand lettering with integrity? Can things be over-digitized? And is there a value to using hand-lettered fonts in lieu of actual hand lettering? And these are just some examples I pulled in Toronto in the last 2 weeks, just snapping with my phone just around the city. So like this is at a coffee shop. At a glance, it looks kind of great, except when you look a little closer, you can see the M's are totally identical, so it's likely a script font. The proportions of the large text and the small seem a bit off, so I feel like had they just reached out to a letterer, I think it could have been more cohesive. This is the beloved LCBO, the liquor board. Again, the giveaway is the duplicate letters in succession. You just see, to me, it just bounces out as font, when really, I think a lettering artist could have really done a bang-up job on this. I don't even know what to say about this. Just skip it. And then generic cornflakes, love cornflakes. I think this is actually the best of the batch. There's some weird overlap issues, but there's no letters in succession, so it's not as much of a giveaway. I think it could have maybe been better, but generally not bad. I don't want to point fingers, but it's really easy to download script fonts these days. So I think it's sort of my duty and everyone's duty to educate people that there's more beyond these sort of free downloading websites. What do? Hire a letterer. So I'll just keep rolling along here. I thought it might be useful to show my personal approach to how I tackle different lettering challenges based on some of the recent client work that I've done. This is a video which I totally don't have time to show, but maybe I'll post on social media if you want to take a closer look just at my process. But I will show you a recent commission I did. So I tend to just make a mess, letter a whole bunch of things, and then composite them together, usually in Adobe Illustrator, but in this case, I decided to use Photoshop because I wanted to preserve the transparency of the ink and the very, very rough edges. So this is some process work, followed by the final work on the left, and then a close-up on the right showing my duplicate letters in succession. The transparency doesn't read quite as well, but on the page, it really was a nice sort of black to gray fade. This was, a colleague of mine reached out to me and said, I'm having this book cover designed for me. Can I send you the font to give me your honest opinion? And I said, sure. So he sent me this, and I told him, it's not terrible, but I think if it was custom, it would look more like it was built for the book. So if you can give me half a day, I'll gladly put together a mock-up for you to show you how it could be. I sent him this, which I think we did one round of revisions, and it was approved. And the best part of this story is the text that he sent back, the gray box. They love them. The glyphs don't match. The glyphs don't match. This was another book cover I did recently. I tried out a bunch of different tools and pens. This was the approved layout. This is just the scan. They said, okay, we need to go to press right away. If you can just vectorize and send it to us, we'll wrap this up. So I spent some time cleaning up the vectors in Illustrator, sent them this, and they replied and they said, oh, it's too clean. Can you take a couple steps back and make it a bit rougher and more hand done? So it may not read a lot. I'll toggle between. This is the roughened version we settled on versus the clean, rough, clean. So to us, it might just seem like a few small details, but to the client, it really made the difference. And in the end, they were very, very happy with the final piece. Another quick example, this was for a magazine in the financial district of Toronto. So this was my auto trace that they had approved the style of this, and they said, again, can you please just quickly clean it up, send us the vector so we can go to press tonight? And I was like, oh my God, okay. So I did it as quick as I could, and I thought Bay Street, let's clean this up nice. So I spent some time working on the vectors, making them smooth and even. I switched up the B's a bit, and again, they said, we like the weirdness of the B's and the bouncing baseline. Can you take it a step back? So we ended up settling on sort of somewhere in between. The main thing was sharpening up my crossbars on the T's, but generally speaking, they liked the original. And that was the finished masthead, which is still in use 6 months later. So I have this proposal that I'm kind of throwing at you today, this new thing. I don't really know what to call it, so I'm calling it the Cleanometer. I'd like to be able to send this to clients so that when we're trying to figure out how clean they want it, I can just send them this document, and they can tell me what level on the thermometer. So this is just to show you 4 levels that we could work with. So this is raw, auto trace, untouched, slightly cleaned up, a little more cleaned up, and then almost purely vector. So I'll just, so raw, da, 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 da. And then this is in succession. So if anybody wants this, just message me and I'll send it to you. I'm going to be totally using this with clients. One final quick project as we wrap up, just to show you a fun example of analog to digital to analog. I was commissioned by Quebec City-based chocolate company Chocolat Février to do a large-scale mural in their new Ontario shop. So we had settled on this idea of chocolate on everything. I put together some lettering. We approved the vectors, and then I executed it at 20 feet wide in bronze paint in their cafe, inside the cafe. And you can see how we captured the rawness in the sort of scratchy bits. So it looks like I took a giant brush and just, went at it, but it actually took like 4 days. But they were happy, and that's all that matters. I'm totally going to plug something now. So in 2016, I decided to challenge myself to draw one complete hand-lettered alphabet every weekday for the entire year. And at the end of the year, I had 250 alphabets sitting on my desk. So in the spring, I was able to publish the entire collection into a monograph with Coach House Books in Toronto. I printed 100 copies. I'm happy to say there's actually only about 20 left, which is amazing. But if you're interested in alphabets or resource material, please get in touch. It's on my website. I have a copy if you'd like to take a look at it. But any support would be fabulous. So let's conclude here. So when I'm working, I like to keep one eye on my work and one eye on what's coming up next, because if we even think of the word trend, it has the word end in it. So every trend must end, right? I think, like I discussed, we must acknowledge that change, the change that technology is having on our craft. So we must embrace the best parts of it while retaining that human touch. Personally, I'm grateful for technology every time that I scan a sketch, export a PDF, or send an EPS to a client. My personal goal is always to push the limits of what lettering can do and say, and use the power of letters and words to keep hand lettering alive. I think our best bet as a community is to continue educating and informing designers and non-designers about the craft of the written word, which will only add to its value and longevity on the page and on the screen. Merci beaucoup.